welcome to the SVG-TV news for Monday, December 13th. I'm Khalil Keita with the details. The estimates of revenue and expenditure for the fiscal year 2022 amounting to $1,329,340,860 were presented in Parliament today by Minister of Finance Camilo Gonzalez. He said the figure represents a 9.6% increase over the approved budget for 2021.
The budget for 2022 is broken down as follows. Recurrent expenditure, inclusive of amortization and sinking fund contributions, $931,876,660, and capital expenditure of $397,463,860. Financing for the 2022 budget is expected to come from current revenue of $677,586,000 and capital receipts totaling $651,832,860. Honorable House should also note, Madam Speaker, that the supplementary estimates that were approved by this Honorable House on May the 11th, 2021, in the sum of $117.9 million, that became colloquially known as the volcano supplementary budget. Those supplementary estimates have been reflected in this document in the revised estimates 2021 column of the 2022 estimates that we have before us.
Minister Gonzalez also noted that the current revenue of $677.5 million EC dollars is a 4.7% or $30.1 million increase over the amount budgeted for in 2021, and the improvement in the revenue performance for 2020 is reflective of what is anticipated to be a strong uptick in real economic activities projected for the year. He said revenue from tax services is expected to contribute $582.5 million to the consolidated fund in 2022, while non-tax revenues are estimated to gross $95 million, with increased tax revenue of 5.3%.
The major tax types are expected to contribute as follows. Taxes on income and profits, estimated to grow by $1.2 million or 0.8%. Taxes on goods and services are expected to increase by $4.2 million or 2.2%. Taxes on international trade and transactions to go up by 4.1% or $6.7 million. Non-tax revenue collection in 2022 is estimated at $95 million, a figure that is 1.7% more than the amount budgeted in 2021. The amount in the 2022 budget under non-tax revenue is expected to come mainly from sales of goods and services, which is projected to generate $75.7 million in revenue.
The total estimated recurrent expenditure inclusive of amortization and sinking fund contribution is $931.9 million EC dollars, which Minister Gonzalez pointed out is 4.1% or $36.7 million above the amount budgeted for in 2021.
The recurrent expenditure for 2022 is made up as follows. Current expenditure of $727 million, amortization of $182.9 million, sinking fund contributions of $22 million. The following are the changes recorded in the three subcomponents of the total recurrent expenditure for the 2022 budget compared with that of the previous year. Current expenditure increases by 4.1%, amortization increases by 4.4%, and sinking fund contributions remain flat.
The finance minister said the items which account for the budget increase in 2022 include compensation of employees, which have been increased by 2.4% or $8.2 million, other transfers, which include social assistance, training, grants, and contributions to local, regional, and international organizations, which have seen an increase of 5.7% or $7.3 million.
of the recurrent expenditure budget by economic category is as follows. Compensation of employees will amount to $354 million. Pensions, $60.3 million. Other transfers, $134.7 million. Debt service, $279 million. Goods and services, $103.9 million. Again, for a total of $931.9 million.
Minister Gonzalez noted that the budget for 2022 is concentrated in 4 main functional areas, which account for 79.9% of the recurrent estimates. He also pointed out that 144 new positions have been included in the estimates, with the majority created in the Ministry of Health, Wellness and the Environment. Of the 61 posts created in the ministry, 22 are persons who will be added to the staff of the Argyle Isolation Center to further support the services provided at the facility in light of the continuing challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic. In his response to the estimates presentation, Opposition Leader Dr. Godwin Friday questioned how the budget will be financed. He pointed to other receipts, which he said is one of the largest categories of funding in the budget, amounting to $265 million. Dr. Friday said no specific details have been provided as to how the government intends to get the money to fund this and other debts. If it doesn't, what are the consequences?
Who is going to suffer in this budget? I mean, do we have 2 realities here? One that's on paper that everybody can see, and the other that operates in the Ministry of Finance, where you're chopping and changing to meet the realities of the actual expenditure that can be made. Because it's either you raise the money or somebody is going to have to go without. And I want for the minister to explain the raising of the money. I hope he can raise the money. This economy can do with a boost. People are feeling pain. They need hope. They don't need mirages. They need honesty so that they know what they're facing going forward.
Dr. Friday noted that the room for borrowing is limited, given the size of the country's debt to GDP ratio, which he said moved from 85% to 98%.
The situation that we have here is one that is untenable. What it says is that the government, I mean, if you have 42 cents in every dollar paying debt, you have a debt to GDP ratio of 98%. You don't even need a document from anybody to tell you that. You're in serious problem. That is evident by itself. So, Madam Speaker, what this tells me is that there's very little room for the government to be borrowing anymore. And so, where are the funds going to come from? Where is the plan? We need a plan for productive investments to support local businesses, farmers, to get the economy going again and creating jobs and then tax revenue for the government.
The opposition leader also told Parliament that the people of SVG are in no position to afford any new taxes, and the estimates presented as the government's thrust for the new year does not point to anything transformational or suggest any serious effort to move the country's economy forward.
Everybody else, you go around the world, even in the biggest economy in the world, the United States, they're looking at COVID and they're saying, boy, as bad as this is, let's consider this like a reset button. And we start thinking of ways in which we could do things different and better. It requires investment. It requires gray matter, thinking about it as to what is feasible. And then pointing in a direction that everybody can see it and either buy into or can offer critical suggestions as to ways in which it can. But it's just, it seems to me, Madam Speaker, in this particular document, the same sort of puffery and inflation of the estimate to make it look good. I don't understand. I ask myself, what is the point?
Meanwhile, glowing tributes were paid in Parliament today for former Prime Minister and founder of the opposition New Democratic Party, Sir James Fitzalan Mitchell. Opposition leader Dr. Godwin Friday, who led off the tributes, said that Sir James lived a meaningful life with love for St. Vincent and the Grenadines and its people. He said that Sir James's legacy must stand with his contributions, honored and cherished.
And I say this on behalf not just of Sir James, but for all persons who engage in public service and do so with the diligence, dedication, and longevity that Sir James did, that our nation must recognize, cherish, and honor that contribution. So I want to say in this honorable House, so long, Sir James.
The opposition leader recalled how dear Sir James was to him and urged young people to take note of his inspiring example.
And I trust young people will read and inquire and be inspired by his example, as we were so many years ago. I admired him in my youth. As with many others, I grew to love him as a friend and as a mentor. And in this chamber, on behalf of my family, my constituents in Beckwith, the Rock of Gibraltar, in Paget Farm, and all those people who stood behind him and kept him aloft to do his great work. You too must take some credit and comfort in knowing that.
Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves expressed gratitude to Sir James for his contribution to nation building. He said Sir James modernized the state administration while he served as Prime Minister.
Positive legacy in many different areas, and we can peruse the laws and we can look at certain developments in the state administration to see that he contributed immensely to the further modernization of the state administration, a process which his predecessor in office, Robert Milton Cato, had made an important contribution.
Prime Minister Gonsalves mentioned the many interactions he had with Sir James on a personal and official capacity, noting that Sir James's personality was interesting, with love for family and as a servant of the people. PM Gonsalves singled out the last memories he had of Sir James, who wanted the best for the people of SVG, especially during this pandemic.
He was not afraid, in the interest of the country, to take on even his party, because the last issue on which he spoke publicly was the issue of the necessity and desirability to have requirements for certain public frontline workers, requirements for the vaccine. Indeed, he was urging such a public policy publicly for months. And I kept saying, well, you have to have a discussion, you have to do things in a timely basis. But he took on even those who normally would be within his camp. And that, to me, is an important legacy of Sir James.
Several other members of Parliament from the government and opposition benches shared fond memories of Sir James Mitchell, who they say was a mentor and friend who will be greatly missed.
Years later, after the 2021 election, we met in a social private gathering, and I said to him then, and when Prime Minister Gonsalves says that James Mitchell had a great sense of humor, well, he said wicked. I would say he had a great sense of humor.
The passing of Sir James is by any measure the end of an era. Over the last 20 years that I've been in this House, we have lost some very great.
Meanwhile, the body of Sir James will lie in state in the House of Assembly this Friday, December 17th, from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Viewing for the family will take place from 10 to 10:15, viewing for the Governor General and the Prime Minister from 10:15 to 10:45, and viewing for officials and dignitaries from 10:45 to 11 a.m. Viewing for the general public will be from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. There will be a ceremonial stop at the New Democratic Party NDP headquarters at approximately 3:30 to 4 p.m., which will be attended by executive members of the NDP only and will not be open to the general public. The casket will be closed whilst at the NDP headquarters. The funeral service will be held on Saturday, December 18th at the Kingstown Methodist Church, according to Anglican rites, from 9 a.m. to 12 noon. A release from the Office of the Prime Minister said limited public seating will be available in the church and will be done on a first-come, first-served basis. The two halls at the Methodist Church will also be available for public seating and viewing of the church service via a video screen. Additional seating will be available in the parking lot of the church. It has also been noted that strict COVID-19 protocols will be enforced in all instances. Following the funeral service, the body will then be taken to Beckway via a private charter on the Beckway Express. No public transportation will be provided to Beckway. The ferry will depart Kingstown at 1 p.m. Upon arrival in Beckway, there will be an official procession with a ceremonial stop at the almond tree for the playing of 2 songs. The funeral service will resume in Beckway at 2:30 at the St. Mary's Anglican Church until approximately 4:45 p.m. The family wishes to encourage persons from the mainland to attend only the service in Kingstown and persons from the northern and southern Grenadines to attend the service in Beckway. Sir James will be buried at the family cemetery at Mount Pleasant, Beckway, at 5 p.m. The casket will only be opened during the period of official viewing at the House of Assembly on Friday. The family has requested that no photographs or videos be taken of the body during the official viewing period. 1-minute silence will be observed nationwide at 11 a.m. on Friday. SVG-TV will bring you a live stream of the funeral service on Friday from the Methodist Church. 18 positive COVID-19 cases were reported from 162 samples collected last Thursday, December 9th, resulting in a positivity rate of 11.1%. 22 new rapid antigen positive results were also reported on Thursday from flu clinics. On Friday, 11 cases were reported from 176 samples, resulting in a positivity rate of 6.3%, and 12 positive rapid antigen results were also reported from flu clinics. On Saturday, there was 1 positive case from 76 samples, resulting in a positivity rate of 1.3%, with 8 rapid antigen positive results being reported from the flu clinics. There are currently 3 patients admitted for COVID-19 at the Argyle Isolation Facility. 1 patient is fully vaccinated, the other 2 are unvaccinated. 14 patients were admitted to the COVID-19 ward at the Milton Cato Memorial Hospital, all unvaccinated. No deaths or new recoveries were noted over the reporting period. 534 cases are currently active and 77 persons with COVID-19 have died. 5,722 cases of COVID-19 and 5,111 recoveries have been recorded in St. Vincent and the Grenadines since March 2020. A picket that was to be held in front of Parliament today by the SVG Teachers Union and others as part of their continued protest action against the government's vaccination policy was postponed. President of the SVG Teachers Union, Oswald Robinson, who made a late call for persons to join him on the picket line today, explained why they decided to postpone today's action.
To have a protest today, but we actually postponed it because there was so many things happening this morning, you know. So, and people have to travel way north to get here. So we postpone it until at an appropriate time. Well, forces are waiting on the next move. And the next move is that we will continue to picket. They're not off the job until they have something in writing to say they're off the job. If the persons who have orchestrated this thing, if they're real professionals, they would write, they would communicate in writing. That is the honorable thing to do. So as far as we are concerned, those teachers are on the job because they have been reporting for work. They have been teaching. Some of them are actually online teaching. And they must be rewarded for their work.
So the SVG-TU held a picket last Friday, which Robinson deemed a success. He said that he is appalled that the government has gone ahead to hire retired teachers to replace some of the approximately 200 who are likely to be fired because of their position on the COVID-19 vaccines.
What I have observed is that there are senior education officers now who have retired, now been sent back to teach in the primary school. And that is to show you how low the Ministry of Education, the government has gone. You know, actually scraping the barrel, the bottom of the barrel, so to speak. They have created a crisis and they cannot solve the crisis that they have created. And it is so sad. When people are not listening, then they will find themselves in this kind of desperate position.
The SVG-TU head said they will be filing an injunction later this week on behalf of the unvaccinated teachers. While today's picket was postponed, a few unvaccinated teachers still showed up. One teacher, Mr. Grant, who was given marching orders from his school last Friday, said he is heartbroken that his dream career came to an abrupt end. However, he is confident that he will fare well despite the challenging times ahead.
I always like teaching. Teaching is something that is, well, it's the best way to give back to society. You're able to impart knowledge, and being one of the few male teachers in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, I find that we are needed and we can be a positive role model to the fellow males in our school. So I always wanted to be a teacher. Next to me, well, we live each day as our last, so I believe God will provide. So I have hope for the future, and so that's why I said I have hope for the future. God will provide. Vaccinated teachers and vaccinated teachers are not a threat because, as you would note, even teachers who were vaccinated months ago, they're now being seen as under-vaccinated because you have to get 2 and 3 boosters soon. So I mean, we're not a threat. So give us a break. We want to do what we love to know, that is teaching.